name is Jason J. Rock Huston, and you're listening to Chaotic Riff Magazine. We can be found on the web at www.chaoticriff.com. Our special guest tonight is Appetite for Destruction lead singer Gar Borras. Welcome back to the show. Gar's been a few years since we last chatted, and tonight we're interviewing you for our On the Record segment, which is where we talk to musicians who talk to us about some of their favorite albums that really influenced them. And, you know, like a lot of musicians these days, you made a list of like your top 10 or top 20 albums, and today we're going to be talking with you about you included on that list Alice Cooper's $1 Billion Babies album. So right off the bat, could you share with us how you first became an Alice Cooper fan, and you know why this album was so influential on you?
Well, you know, basically what it was is, you know, when that album came out, I was a kid. And, you know, the radio stations that, you know, were really popular back in those days were KLOS and KMET.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it's like the 1970s.
Wow.
And, you know, so it was kind of a time, you know, where I was, you know, playing music, but I wasn't really a singer at that time. I was a bass player.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And yeah, and I was always, you know, when I would hear music on the radio that, you know, just, you know, the music seemed, you know, very strong, it would get my attention. And at that time, when Alice Cooper came out with $1 Billion Babies, which was somewhere around the mid-70s.
I believe 73, yeah.
Yeah, it was, you know, in my earliest stages as a musician playing bass.
Wow.
And it just got my attention because at that time his band was extremely strong.
Oh yeah, definitely.
At that time, you know, when you heard the bass player, he was playing very aggressively. When you hear $1 Billion Babies, listen to the bass parts. It's very, very aggressive.
Yeah. Now let me ask you, Gar. When you first were discovering the Alice Cooper band, Alice is obviously, you know, it's one thing to hear the music because pretty much any era of music you listen to that Alice has done, one thing you can say is they're greatly written songs. But I'm with you. A lot of my favorite Alice Cooper stuff is that early stuff, especially stuff that was produced by Bob Ezrin. But you know, Alice is a real theatrical guy. Now, when you first get into the music of Alice Cooper, did you like first hear the songs on the radio? Did you see a picture of him? Did you have any idea how theatrical of a performer he was?
No, it wasn't about the theatrics or anything. It was really just hearing the stuff on the radio.
Yeah.
You know, No More Mr. Nice Guy was getting heavy radio airplay at that time, and of course, you know, $1 Billion Babies. You know, as a musician, you know, the musicianship was really what got my attention.
Oh yeah, I mean, especially that original band. You had like Michael Bruce on the guitar. You had Neil Smith, the drummer. You know, Glenn Buxton and Dennis Dunaway. And see, that's what many people maybe fail to realize these days. Hear Alice Cooper. Alice Cooper, he's that singer, but no, they actually started out. Alice Cooper started out as a band, and then eventually the band broke up, and he kind of just took on the name. You know, I Am Alice.
Well, you know, I remember, you know, I was in high school when they came out with their first big hit, School's Out.
Oh, yeah.
And that just, oh my gosh, you know, it got such heavy radio airplay because every high school kid at that time, you know, it just struck a chord with everybody that was, you know, in school at that time.
Yeah, well, you know, before they got real popular, I mean, I'm going back a few years before that, when they came out with the first album, the very first single they put out, 18, and I've heard Alice talk about that song, and it's kind of interesting because when you hear the song too, like he said, everybody, they'd hear that song, they thought the lyric was, I'm edgy. And he's like, no, it's about being 18, rebellious.
Yes,
And
I remember that song too. Very, very popular back in those days. But School's Out.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that just exploded for Alice Cooper, in the very beginning.
Yeah, oh yeah. And, $1 Billion Babies is interesting because I was reading up on it today. Of course, there's a title track, but I guess what the song itself was based on was Alice and the guys in the band at the time. They could not believe they were having the kind of success that they had at that point.
Yeah, he was extremely popular at that time, and it wasn't really the theatrics that was, the cause of the popularity. Was the actual songs.
Oh yeah, to me, the theatrics.
He wrote really good kind of storyline songs.
Yeah.
Where each song was kind of telling a story. Yeah,
to me the theatrics was like kind of an extra bonus, but I'm with you. See, if you listen to any Alice Cooper album, even some of the newer stuff he's putting out these days, like you said, he's a great songwriter, great lyric writer, and great storyteller. That's a thing. And even going back to the early days when he had these other guys in the band like Michael Bruce, I mean, they their songwriting skills were just as powerful, and that's why I think after Welcome to My Nightmare came out, and Alice Cooper was more of a solo act. Alice still had his thing going, but it did drastically change because all of a sudden you take those other guys out of a band and you have new guys come in, and Alice is more center stage, if you know what I mean.
Yes. So it really was really about that. It was more about me being a young, kind of being a sponge, type of musician where, at that time when you're really, really young, you're just looking at, for all kinds of music to be influenced by, to kind of stretch your own wings as a musician, because if you're learning how to play music by other musicians that are really strong, it helped you to strengthen up what you were doing as a musician.
And when you were starting out as a musician at that point, like you said, you weren't necessarily a singer, more of a bass player, but once you got to the point where you were writing your own original material, because I know these days you do the Guns N' Roses tribute, but when you're at that point and you're trying to start writing your own original material, was Alice a huge influence on you as far as your songwriting?
Well, by the time I started doing original stuff, it was the 80s, so it was really past the 70s. Yeah. The 70s was really more of a time for me where I was just learning the ropes. Just starting to become a musician, and way back in the 70s, there was a lot of bands that were playing around in Los Angeles at that time that were also, as a musician, that were kind of becoming influences on me before I became the bands that started spurring me to want to get into doing originals, because back in the 70s it was more about just being a musician and kind of learning covers, I guess that's what you would say. Just looking at all of this music to kind of develop your own skills. I remember the big bands that I would go to see when I was a kid, and just like wishing I could be up on that stage. I remember Quiet Riot. They were popular back in the 80s, but they were actually playing in Los Angeles at clubs during that time, and I remember driving by clubs and seeing big banners in front of the club saying Quiet Riot featuring Randy Rhoads. And and I remember another really big band that was very that spurred me on to want to get up on stage was a band called A La Carte. A lot of people don't remember, because it's such a long time ago, back in the 70s, but A La Carte was a very highly regarded Los Angeles band.
Wow, wow.
And then there was also another band called Smile.
Oh, okay.
That had a guy named Tommy Gervin that went on to play guitar for Eddie Money for many years.
Wow.
And then there was also another band called Snow.
Yeah,
that had
was
Carlos Cavazo that went on to play with Quiet Riot after Randy Rhoads.
Yeah.
And then there was another band. This band I kind of stumbled on because I was just, it was like maybe 73 or 74 or maybe 75. I was living in a house in West Covina, and there was this house behind us that had a band that was playing Led Zeppelin. It was like they were a Led Zeppelin tribute band because everything they played was by Led Zeppelin, and the singer sounded just like Robert Plant.
Wow, amazing.
So here I am, a kid, and of course I drop everything and I go over to this house, because they're blasting out.
Yeah.
And there's this guy that's playing all the guitar parts named Donnie Simmons.
Wow.
And he went on to become, a highly regarded guitarist for a band called Stormer.
Oh, wow.
But I was like mesmerized watching how good that guitarist was.
Yeah.
And this is just right behind my house.
Wow.
When I was a kid.
Yeah.
And then, I grew up in the East San Gabriel Valley, and there's a number of musicians that were really, that became, famous from the area that were playing. And these are all the guys that, I'm like, hey, man, I want to do what they're doing.
Oh, wow.
And, Mark Kendall.
Great White.
I actually went to elementary school and played in Little League with Mark Kendall.
Oh, wow.
So, and he, of course, Great White, they were playing, and of course, here you are, and you're wanting to do what they're doing.
So let me ask you about, in reference to Mark Kendall and Great White, being around when they were just like first coming up, because it's kind of interesting. They're they're a band that's very obviously influenced by the blues and Led Zeppelin, but interestingly enough, when the first couple releases, when Great White's just kind of breaking out, they sounded more like of a metal band. They were heavier, a little harder edge, and then they kind of morphed into a blues band. What was that like for you to see, as a fan, this band kind of growing up in your backyard and kind of seeing what they became?
Well, because I had known Mark, when we were little kids.
Yeah.
We kind of lived in the same general area, and there's a number of times that, we would play, out of, there was an elementary school that I just lived within very short walking distance from, and of course all the kids would be playing out there, and Mark was just another kid just like everybody else.
Wow, yeah.
We'd all be just playing like kids, and then later on, I was walking around that school, and I could hear these people playing guitar, and they were playing surf guitar stuff.
Oh,
It was 60s. And of course it was Mark Kendall and some other kids, and I'm just walking by and I could hear them play.
Yeah.
And Mark was very good at playing guitar at a very young age.
Wow.
And so I knew about him,
early on.
way before the 80s.
Yeah.
When he started doing what he was doing. And so then, later on in the 1970s, there's this battle of the bands going on at a youth center right there in across the street from West Covina High School.
Wow.
and everybody that was into music, because music, back in the 70s was every high school kid's life.
Oh, yeah.
Everything that was going on was the soundtrack to your life at that time. And
I mean, the time of era we're talking about, people listening to this may not even realize that was the era where people actually still knew what a record player was, a record, a cassette, dare I say, 8-track tape,
Yes, 8-track tape was the high tech of that time.
and we're talking about time that even predates CDs. CDs wouldn't come out for like a few years later, but it's just amazing. And even these days, as we're talking, to see vinyl somewhat making somewhat of a comeback. And it's kind of interesting because I talk to guys and they tell me, I don't even have a turntable, but I'm starting to get all this stuff on vinyl. I can't even play, but just for a collector's thing.
Yeah. Yes, it's become popular again.
Yeah.
But back to what I was talking about at this youth center, there was a battle of the bands, and there's a number of bands that were playing.
Wow.
That had musicians that went on, and one of those bands was a band that Mark Kindle was in called Zizix.
Oh wow.
And so I'm watching, Mark at this Battle of the Bands, and he was very, very, proficient, playing an old, one of my favorite tellies, from, nowadays, those, I just love, musical instruments.
Oh, wow.
Even though because eventually I went on to become not just a bass player but also a guitar player.
Wow.
But he was playing a really, really cool old telly at that time, and he was really, really good. And then also Vince Neil was playing at that Battle of the Bands.
Oh wow!
And it was when Vince Neil was really, really young and green.
Wow, yeah.
And way before Motley Crue, because this is back in I guess it's maybe about 76 or 77.
Wow. Yeah.
And so, I'm watching all of these people, before they, became famous musicians.
Yeah.
Tommy Lee also grew up. Vince Neil went to Glendora High School.
Yeah.
Tommy Lee went to Royal Oak High School, and Royal Oak High School doesn't even exist anymore.
Wow, yeah.
And I went to high school with the Moreland brothers. Mark Moreland went on to play in a famous band called Walla Voodoo.
Oh, wow.
And then also in the same neighborhood, I lived in West Covina, and there was another city real close by called La Puente.
Oh, yeah,
and there was a guitarist that had a lot of word of mouth, and his name was Tracy Grijalva.
Oh, wow.
And he went on to play guitar for like 5 or 6 years with Ronnie James Dio, and did a number
of I know you're talking about his. His name. I think
call him Tracy G.
Tracy G. Yeah, and he's one of those very underrated players, because he played on a few Dio albums. Yes, he did. But if you go and check out his website, I think it's like just tracyg.com. He sells all these great like solo albums that he put out since then, and he's just amazing at what he does.
Back in the 1970s, there was a really big word of mouth about him. In fact, there was a drummer that I was playing with, and he said, "Hey, come on, let's go over to this guy's house. He plays guitar, and he's really, really good." And I didn't know who he was, and and it was just in La Puente, so it was no big deal to drive over there. And sure enough, we went over there, and he was just playing. He had a Marshall amp, and back in those days, they didn't have gains and stuff like that. If you wanted to get the tone, you had to blast out. And he was extremely loud, but he was so good. And this is Tracy at maybe 16 years old.
Wow. And
the guy was just flooring me with his guitar playing. He was so good at such a young age.
Yeah. And
so,
it's amazing.
these are all people that, that I was kind of surrounded with and watching them play. And of course, it spurs you. I want to do that. I want to be doing what these guys are doing.
Yeah. And even before he was in Dio, he had a brief bit of success before that. I guess how Ronnie discovered him was prior to getting him in Dio, he played with Vinny Appice and Jimmy Bain in another band called World War III that kind of had a Sabbathy vibe to it anyways.
Yes. Tracy, he was I was maybe about a year older than him or something like that, but I was so fortunate to grow up in the East San Gabriel Valley because there was just so many good musicians, and there was so many bands playing in backyard parties.
Wow.
That I remember going to a backyard party, and there was literally thousands of people, at this backyard party, and it was Mark Moreland and his brother Bruce Moreland.
Wow.
I mentioned him earlier. He played in Wall of Voodoo, and this is way before they were in Wall of Voodoo. They were playing in a band called Captain Cosmo and the Sky People.
Oh wow! Just the name alone, I can imagine what the music must sound like. But man, that's a cool name.
It was pre-Black Sabbath kind of stuff. It very, very much sounded like Black Sabbath at that time.
Wow.
And they were playing in this huge backyard party, and they wound up having the cops come, and the cops were ready for like for the crowd. It was almost, they had shields and everything, and they were coming in, and it just kind of turned into a riot.
Wow.
Not because of the people, but because of how the cops showed up ready for it to be a riot.
Yeah. Wow. That's amazing.
But it was, and I remember being at that party, and the people that lived in the neighborhoods were telling the kids, "Hey, come inside our house so you can be safe."
Yeah.
And I'm just sitting here going, okay. I wasn't going to argue because they had their batons and everything, and it was just turned into a riot.
Wow.
But, it would just show the good-heartedness of all of these people that lived in the neighborhood. They didn't want to see the kids get hurt.
Yeah.
And so here I am, and I go in this house, and lo and behold, my sister's inside the house.
Like, wow, what are you doing here?
At that party.
Wow.
And there was all kinds of people that that wound up going into a lot of the people's houses for safety.
Wow.
And then but that was just the way it was back in those days, because when everybody was at high school.
Yeah.
Basically what the popular thing was passing around flyers. Who was having the party at their house? Where's the party? Where's the party?
And did you ever get opportunity to perform at any of those parties back then, or were you?
Yes, I wound up the first band that I was ever in was a band called Reality Sandwich.
Wow, I like that too.
That was back in the 1970s, mid-70s, and the band was all nothing but improvisation.
Oh wow!
We didn't learn songs. We just whole thing started.
You kind of just would come up with the songs kind of on the fly, just get up there and whatever came out of your.
Yeah.
Wow.
That whole band started with this guy. I would be at somebody's house, and there was this guy in a white V-dub, and he would drive by, and every time he would drive by, he would say, he would yell out my name.
Wow.
And wave to me, and I didn't know who he was, and I would just wave back, and he would just drive by. And then this happened a number of times. I would be at different places, and here comes that guy, and he'd drive by, and he'd yell out my name and wave to me, and I would just wave back to him, and I had no idea who he was.
Wow.
One day he stopped.
Wow.
And he goes, "You play bass, right?"
Yeah.
And I go, "Yeah, I play bass." And he goes, "Do you want to jam?"
Yeah, why not?
And I go, "Well, yeah, sure, I guess."
Wow.
Because I didn't know anything. What was going on. And so he goes, "Okay, I'll get in touch with you. I'll put something together and I'll get in touch with you and we'll jam."
Wow.
And so one day, I don't know how he knew where I lived.
Wow.
And he shows up at my door, knocking on my door, and he goes, "Are you ready to jam?"
Yeah, let me ask
you. And I go, "Yeah, but my bass is in pieces in the closet, and I have my bass head, but I don't even have a bass cabinet." He goes, "Well, let's put your bass together."
Let's get going.
And so we put my bass, and we grabbed all the pieces, and luckily all the pieces were there, and we put it together, and the neck nut was broken, and the low E bass string wouldn't stay on.
Wow.
And we literally took a nail and hammered it into the neck so it would hold the low E bass string in place.
Wow, that's rock
and we didn't even know if the bass would work, and we grabbed my head and we went over to somebody's house, and he had a cabinet there, and we plugged it in, and it all worked.
Wow,
we had no idea if it was going to even work.
Now that's the ultimate improvisation right there, And now, did you ever find out from this guy? Like, had he seen you play previously? Did somebody recommend you or tell him about you, or was he just...
Well, he went to my high school. We both went to West Covina High School, but I graduated a couple of years before him.
Oh, okay.
And he just knew by word of mouth, that we both lived in the same city.
Wow.
We both lived in West Covina, and that's why I would run across him. He actually turned out to be a whale of a drummer.
Wow.
I mean, he was incredible, and he went on to play in another band with Tracy G called Swift Kick, and they actually, were signed to an independent and put out an album. And that's a whole nother story because he contacted me because they were looking for a singer for Swift Kick, and I had been working, this is now in the 80s, and the early 80s, and there was a singer that I had worked with that was a really good singer that was kind of new to LA. And his band Swift Kick was looking for a singer, and Tracy was the guitarist.
Wow.
And I put them together with the singer, and after they auditioned him, he calls me and goes, "Okay, what's wrong with him?" And I said, "Well, what do you mean?" He goes, "He's too perfect."
Wow.
And I go, "Well, there's nothing wrong with him. He's a good guy. I really enjoyed playing music with him. Unfortunately, the band that we were playing together with is no longer together. But you needed a good singer.
That's why I recommended him.
And so of course I'm going to recommend him. Because he's a good singer, but he was a really good guy. And he goes, he was just too." He was so perfect, but he had to find what's wrong. There's got to be something wrong.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. You mentioned this guy would go on to become a pretty good drummer because, interestingly enough, I don't know if you're aware, but there are other famous singers that were drummers first, like Janie Lane. I heard before he was ever a lead singer, he was a drummer. Steven Tyler, even obviously Phil Collins, he was a drummer first. He kind of became accidentally a lead singer.
Well, I think it's really good when you're a singer and you have some type of musical instrument background. Because when you have that kind of a musical instrument background that you did before you started singing, I think the biggest thing that it helps you to do is to be able to sing on key. Because I remember when I was really, really young, there was a lot of people that, would try singing, but the difficulty that, because they had no musical instrument background, they had huge difficulty singing on key. And so, I think it really, really helps to have some kind of a background like that, because then you have the ability to be able to sing on key.
Obviously. It's kind of like people, we were talking about Vince Neil earlier, and there are a lot of people that say, okay, he's not a great singer, but he's great at what he does. Obviously, if he wasn't, he wouldn't have been doing it all these years. I mean, especially that's why I think as great of a singer as John Corabi is, and some say he's better than Vince, but they're two different kind of singers, and for whatever reason, Motley Crue it works best with the four original guys, and you can say what you want about Vince Neil, but that is the voice of Motley Crue, if you know what I mean.
Yes. And these are all people that I
grew up with.
The whole theme of this conversation is musical influences. And these are all the people that I kind of grew up around as a kid.
And it's kind of interesting talking about your influences like that, because you're kind of talking about the fact that you grew up around all these other guys that went on to have some level of success, and that's kind of interesting that you grew up in that area where it spawned so many musicians would go on to bigger and better things.
As a kid, you don't realize how lucky you are to live in the place that you're actually living in and being surrounded by all of these other people, because, as far as we knew, that's just the way it was. It was normal. But, when you really think about it, there's a lot of people that live in neighborhoods and live in other places and stuff like that, and they weren't as fortunate to be able to be surrounded by so much and have it be so much a part of their lives. It was a part of your social life. It wasn't just being into music. It was going and hanging around with people and going and seeing bands in other people's backyards. And you don't realize that, hey, that these people are going to wind up going on to higher levels of fame and stuff like that.
I mean, even like the era you're talking about, Gar, especially back, like, there's a time where you could walk down the Sunset Strip any night, and back in the day, you might see, Lemmy used to hang out on the Rainbow, you might see a guy like him, you might see a Nikki Sixx or Vince Neil walking down the street. You see all these guys, like, just kind of out on the scene every night back in the day, and it's kind of sad what it's become, because it's like with all this COVID stuff going on, they're not allowing any concerts right now. No bands are able to perform, and as a result of that, like a couple things have already happened. The Troubadours, they've got a GoFundMe page, but they're in danger of being forced to close down because they're not making.
I gotta mention right now. Back in the '80s, I played at pretty much every legendary
club,
club in LA, because this is where I lived. And of course, if you wanted to play music and you wanted to have some level of success, those are the places that you had to play at. The Troubadour, for me, was my favorite place to play at back in the 1980s. It was such a pain in the butt to load in and load out and everything like that. And the stage wasn't really, really super deep, but it was really wide. I really, for some reason, you know, for me, I was never that bass player that stood over by his bass amp. You know how they, you know. The bass player was always considered that guy that was in the back, and there was always the guitarist and the singer that was up in the front.
Oh, yeah.
I was never that kind of bass player. I was up in the front messing with everybody just like everybody else. And it just never fathomed to me to be that bass player back in the back, standing by his bass amp, just holding down the bottom end. And I was one of those crazy guys that you give me a stage where I can move around and it was super wide and I can run back and forth and I didn't have to worry about running into the guitarist or running into the singer, and I could just be an absolute maniac. That's my memories of the Troubadour.
Oh, that's amazing. You know,
it was just such a wonderful place to play at, and it was my early years of really kind of expanding the wings.
Yeah, and it's kind of sad to see what that area has turned into. I mean, like Las Vegas is now becoming what LA used to be. A lot of the famous LA musicians we're talking about have moved to Las Vegas. A lot of them are they have these residency shows, or they were, you know, at one point, but everybody's moving to Vegas or Nashville, and even like Nashville, from what I understand. A lot of guys go there to write now that are kind of retired. They write music for other people, even guys that weren't maybe originally country songwriters or anything. But that's a way to make a living, and that's what a lot of these guys are are doing these days. But it's kind of interesting to see what the music world has kind of morphed into.
Well, nothing stays the same, and you know, nowadays that, you know, pinch me because I still get to, you know, even though I'm not playing originals anymore, and you know I'm playing other people's music and doing this whole tribute band thing. You know, I really, you know, I feel very blessed that, you know, Las Vegas is one of the places that I have
been able
to be able to play nowadays, and we have a very good, solid fan base in Las Vegas.
Wow.
So it's kind of humbling, you know, to think about, you know, because like when you know, I'm posting stuff on Facebook and just kind of keep, during this whole COVID thing, just kind of keeping, you know, the band, you know, in people's mind, posting stuff. I always get a number of posts from people in Las Vegas. When are you guys coming back to Las Vegas? When are you guys coming back? You know, and it's very humbling, you know, that you have
somewhere else to go.
City that we're really not located in, and
that they'll welcome you to their city.
They want us to come back, and this is an entertainment capital.
And it's like I've discussed with you before, Gar. A lot of people have the misconception that, oh, you know, anybody plays in a tribute band, they're failed musicians, they're playing other people's music. And what I will say to that is, like I told you before, number one, you're talking to a guy here who I can't play musical licks. So first of all, to get up there and be able to play anybody's music, that takes a certain level of talent. Second of all, a lot of these tribute bands that do like what you do, you know, you take it the extra mile, you dress the part, and I call that like rock and roll theater, because like what you do, you know, somebody maybe has never seen Guns N' Roses, what's the likelihood they ever will, but they can go see your band. Or maybe when they go see your band, you know, and you're belting out Welcome to the Jungle or something like that, you take them back to, you know, 1987 when they heard that song on the radio for the very first time or something like that, you know. And I've seen shows, you know, clips of what you guys do, even online, like you're saying that you post, and it's that good. You close your eyes and you almost swear, you know, it was Axl Rose up on that stage, because you're just that good at what you do, as well as your bandmates, and that to me is what it's all about, you know.
Well, you know, for me, you know, I keep saying this over and over and over. I really had no idea that I would be doing what I'm doing right now.
Yeah.
If you would go back to the 80s when I was playing in Los Angeles and I was like hardcore going after that record contract just like everybody else and doing that whole thing. If you would have told me back then, because the only people that were really doing anything that you would consider a tribute was Beatlemania and Randy Hansen doing Jimi Hendrix. That was it.
Yeah.
Or Rain that was doing the Beatles.
I think but
that was it.
I think other two.
And if you would have told me at that time that, hey, sometime in the future you're going to be, playing in a tribute band, dressing up like, somebody else and doing that, I would have told you you're crazy. I had no idea I'd be doing this. But given the choice of
making a living or not.
Well, not just that, but given that, musicians have, when a musician is playing, it's very fulfilling. When a musician is not playing, if you're a really true musician and you're not playing, there's a hole in your life.
Yeah.
There's an emptiness. And given the choice of, sitting around talking about the good old days and not playing and considering it's all over, or given the choice to still be out there playing, even though it's not your own music, because I played my own music and I got very good at coming up with really good bass lines for music and stuff like that. And I did original music very successful for 10 years.
Yeah.
And so, I don't feel any kind of regret, even though I didn't achieve the kind of success that I was going after. But there's millions of people that are like me that didn't achieve the success that you were going after at that time.
But then on the flip side of that, there are people that not only didn't make it or have the kind of success they want, but then after a certain level time, they just say, I'm going to give up on this music thing. I'm going to get a regular job. And thank God you never did that, because you're still getting to do what you love to do, and it's much better when you have where you're doing something that doesn't really seem like a job because you enjoy it.
Yes, I think that's the biggest thing is whenever there's a lot of work involved in what I do.
Yeah.
Because I don't just portray Axl, or I don't just sing. I handle all of the business. I handle all of the advertising. I handle all of the vision as to where Appetite is going. I am the vision force for Appetite for Destruction, and but to do all of that work, because it is a lot of work, it never feels like work because it's a work of passion. And
the thing, like, you're very smart with the marketing in the sense, even just the band's name. Okay, people think Appetite for Destruction. That's pretty simple. That's the band's debut album. But even the way you spell it, instead of you use the number 4, and then that kind of prevents you from having to worry about being sued by the band or anything like that. So that's a very cool thing right there. And I think also doing the tribute thing, if you wanted to, it'd be much easier to say, okay, well, I'm gonna portray Axl Rose in this tribute band, but and I'm gonna do that because that's a real. I'm able to make a living that way. But at the same time, if I also wanted to kind of do my own kind of original music on the site, it might allow you to do something like that. Because a perfect example of that is I've interviewed Swan Montgomery, the lead singer from Led Zeppelin, a couple times, and he was sharing with me that Led Zeppelin kind of allows me to kind of make a living and do what I do. But like he recently released a solo album, but that has nothing to do with Led Zeppelin. But people that come and see him, performing Led Zeppelin, they find out he's got a solo. Oh, okay, I'll check that out. And fans, and then kind of it allows him to do that, which is much easier than trying to just do your original music that people might not hear otherwise.
Well, there is going to be a point sometime in the future that I did original music for at least 10 years, and there's a number of songs that I wrote that, you know, somehow in the shuffle over all of the years and stuff like that, I've lost. And there's going to be a point that I'm going to want to go into a studio and re-record. And these are songs where, you know, top to bottom, I wrote all the lyrics, I wrote all of the music, and stuff that I'm very proud of that is actually very catchy stuff. And I'm going to want to re-record this stuff, and I am going to want to release it. Now, whether I'm going to release it for some, you know, expectation for a big payday or something like that, that's something that can't be decided by me. That's really something that's decided by the public, whether they're going to feel the same way about that material as I do. But you know, I still have, you know, a very passionate tie to that music that I wrote back in the 80s that I'm going to want to re-record and re-release.
Now,
so
you might
I will probably be doing something like that too.
You might be surprised though, like even if you just put it up on you know, YouTube or even iTunes, like you could sell it up there, and you might be surprised. You advertise some of that stuff, like on, you know, on your personal page. Say you want to hear some of my original tunes, you know, when it's available. That is, you know, go check this out, and you might be surprised. People check stuff like that out. And in regards to your original music, like when you re-record it, do you think like you would record it as you originally had? Do you think you'd make like updated, kind of modernize it, or what's your thought process on that?
Well, you know, with all of this time, you know, to look at everything in hindsight, I think there are things that can be even done better. You know, so of course I'm going to utilize the experience that I have now, because as a musician, I haven't stagnated. You know, as a musician, in fact, I've grown, and and over the years, all of this, you know, experience that I've gained since then, you know, of course I'm going to utilize that too. You know, I wouldn't want to just, you know, re-record it and re-release it and just do it the old way. There, you know, things can be done better.
Oh yeah, definitely. And let me ask you, in reference to what's going on with the COVID stuff and not being able to get out there and perform, what are you doing to kind of keep yourself busy? Just kind of working on stuff like this?
Well, you know, it's really, really difficult because we have some members in the band, you know, that want to get out and play,
can't though,
and they're just, you know, they're very frustrated because they want to get out and play. They're just like me. You know, when you play in front of an audience, it becomes kind of an addiction.
Oh yeah.
And you want to get back to that. You want to get back to playing in front of that audience, because the feeling that you get playing in front of that audience is so good that you're addicted to go back, and you know. So we have some members in the band that have that strong pull to want to get back on the stage, and then but then I have other members, you know, that they have family members that are very vulnerable, and they don't want to go out, and they don't want to bring it back to vulnerable people in their families. You know, members of the band that their wife, you know, is a recovered cancer survivor, and which makes their wife, you know, very risky to you know, they just can't be cavalier about going out and doing that.
Yeah, of course.
So, you know, we have difficulties in, in wanting to get out there and playing, but also wanting to be careful and you know, value your loved ones' lives and things like that. So, you know, it's I don't think that we're any different from any other band.
No,
I think these same difficulties are happening in just about every band that has got kind of struck down in mid stride with all of this, because it's basically that's what it is. Everybody's out there doing gigs and wanting to get out there and play, and then all of a sudden this thing just completely takes your feet from out underneath you. And so we're going through the same difficulty and the same mid-stride taken down that every other band is going through. But
and then the reason,
then there's the worry that what's going to happen is if this whole thing gets lifted and bands can get out and start playing, how are people going to want to feel about going into a venue and enjoy watching their band and doing all of this and worrying about, am I going to get sick? What is going to happen and everything like that? Am I going to bring this home to my loved ones? For me, the last thing that I would want to do is
do just that.
Get any one of my loved ones sick, and I can guarantee you this, the way that I look at it, all I can do is speak for myself. I would never lose an opportunity to get out and play in front of an audience, but from here on out, because I look at myself as a high risk, because I'm in the age group of the type of person that if I go out and I get struck down with this COVID, that I'm a high risk group person. But the pull for me to want to get up and play and perform is so strong that I'm willing to take the risk. But there's no way that I'm going to go out and do that and not be careful.
I mean, the scary thing to I would think, like guys like you as a musician, is we got to a point where a lot of bands, don't even put out new music like we've talked about before, for the simple fact people aren't buying CDs like they used to, and so but the way to make a living these days for a lot of bands is simply to go out and doing the live shows. But what happens when you can't go out and do live shows anymore? And the scary thing to me, even as a music fan, is you got the governor here saying like, well, we're probably not going to even open Disneyland or anything until 2021, let alone having any kind of concerts or big gatherings. And what's scary to me is, on one hand, you think that you want to get back to a little bit of normalcy, but then even yesterday they're announcing the Hollywood Bowl is not going to have any concerts for the rest of the year. And then I hear today they're going to decide if they're going to even have a Rose Parade. I'm thinking, that's all the way in January, and they're already talking about canceling things for January. Wow.
Well, but what is everybody to do? Let's just throw caution to the wind. And then just have this thing explode. For me, I'm not here to make any kind of political statement or do anything like that. But all I can do is speak as a musician and how a musician feels about that pull to want to get back up on that stage. And that pull to want to get back up on that stage is as strong as it's ever been. I just look at it. I'm willing to take the risk.
I hear you.
To get out on that stage because I love doing it so much. It's like I said, it's an addiction.
But do it in a safe way, right?
But there's no way that I'm going to do that and not be careful.
Of course,
I'm going to protect my life, and I'm going to protect the safety of my loved ones, and I'm not just going to be reckless.
I hear you.
And go out there and do this because there's people that I care about too much. And My son-in-law is a doctor.
Oh wow. Okay, so you
And
you
so
got somebody
the information that I get, I'd say is because
Pretty good.
he's out on the front lines, and
Oh, yeah,
and
definitely.
he has certain patients that
He's seen, yeah.
Right now he can't even see patients in an office. He has to talk to his patients
over the phone.
a la Skype,
wow.
and doing it, this kind of
Wow.
a way,
Wow.
where, but, at least he's still able to stay with his
Patients,
patients and be able to get the kind of information that he needs to be able to help them protect their lives. And some of his patients have COVID.
Yeah, definitely got to tip our
so he has to, and there's sometimes that he has to do, testing,
Wow.
where, he'll do frontline stuff, because he's got to do his part too.
Yeah.
But he's extremely careful and,
Good.
to not bring it back because he's got
family.
a newborn baby that's only 2 months old.
Wow, wow.
And he's got a daughter that's only 3 years old.
Oh, wow.
And of course, as a father, he's going to do everything that he's going to, in his power, to take care of these people that need doctor care.
Yeah.
But also protect his vulnerable children.
Wow.
So being reckless with this whole COVID thing. To me, just as an intelligent person, doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I agree.
Throwing caution to the wind,
No.
It just doesn't make sense.
I guess.
Human life.
Yeah.
Is the most valuable thing that we all have.
Oh yeah, definitely.
You can't put a price tag
on that.
On not just your human life,
but everybody's.
But other people's human life.
Yeah, and I guess to before you wrap this up, just to give people a little bit of perspective of what we're talking about, just kind of give a little something to laugh about here. Who would have thought, Gar, in 2020 that the most wanted or desired item would be toilet paper? I mean, it is just crazy. I can tell you about my own personal experience with that is when this first started, I kid you not, I was worried about not having any toilet paper. It's something that you did not usually, there's a time we used to worry about toilet paper being available at the local market, but it got so bad that I had to stand in line at a Target. I had to wait 30 minutes. You're only allowed to get like one package, and then where I went to Target that particular day, they were only selling like the 30-pack roll for $30. So it's like, well, do I get this? At least I have some toilet paper, or do I go searching? It was getting to the point where I was searching, and I'm like, no, I'm going to get it, but that's what 2020 is going to remember besides COVID, the toilet paper. Just think about that, to put that in perspective for a minute.
Well, for me, being the head of the business for Appetite for Destruction, I started this year more aggressive than I have ever been at getting the band booked, and for us to be busier this year than any other year in the past.
That said it all.
And the way that it's turned out, we only got to do one show.
Yeah.
In January.
Wow. And just to let people know,
after that we got struck down
by this,
at our knees, and we haven't been able to do a single show since. Virtually every show that I had booked all the way through, we're still, I don't really, I have a show at Eastvale Park out there by Norco, California, for July 10th. That's a concert in the park.
Maybe.
And that's July 10th, and I still haven't gotten word whether that's been canceled or not. But I really don't have. Of course, with the way word is coming down, that that's probably going to get canceled too. And all of our shows at Fantasy Springs, we usually do two shows a year at Fantasy Springs. The first show already got canceled, and we have another show in early September. That show, we're just kind of crossing our fingers, our eyes, and our toes, and whatever else I can cross. Anything else doesn't get canceled. And if it gets canceled, so be it. That's just going to be the way that it's going to have to be.
Day to day, you just don't know from one day to the next.
But I can always hope. That we can get a chance to do the show. I think all I can do is speak. For myself. I think that even if this whole thing gets lifted, I just have this strong gut feeling that there's going to be half of the people that are out there that don't believe that think that this whole thing is some big conspiracy, and they're going to be willing to go to these shows, and they're not going to think anything of it. But then there's also going to be another half of people that are just really in fear for not just their lives, but also in fear for the lives of everybody that they love too. And I just have a feeling that it's going to affect the ability for bands to pack venues. And I think I just have this feeling, a strong gut feeling, that there's going to be a hangover, even if it gets lifted, for people, not, being leery of going to a concert and being able to, do what we used to be able to do, and we never thought anything of it.
That's what I'm saying.
Bumping, being all sweaty, and being right bumping shoulders with the person next to you because your body's weaving with the music, and there's just there's a lot of, everybody wants this whole thing to be lifted. But there's just this fear factor that I think that there's going to be part of it, and I will be so grateful, if we have some ability to be able to,
semi-normal life,
be able to go back to doing what we used to do safely.
I mean, who thought we'd ever be living in a time like this where, so many people would be out of work or not knowing what the future holds. It's just, it's kind of an interesting time that we're living here, so we just have to kind of be patient and, see how it all turns out. And I just want to thank you, Gar, for taking time to talk to me today. It's been a while since we chatted, and it's good to catch up. And I think what was cool about what we did today is, we're going to kind of, like you said, talk about your influences, and I kind of like how you kind of went off and told your own personal story of, how you were coming up and all these people you grew up. Very, very interesting story. And before you wrap this up, I just want to say, give people a few more notes on this $1 Billion Babies album that we were talking about at the top of the interview.
Yes.
The album was actually a #1 album both in the U.S. and the U.K. And the producer was Bob Ezrin, who I think he's just very talented. He's a big part of Alice Cooper's sound. He produced some of the Kiss albums later after that. But if you listen to this album or anything he's ever produced, like, he's also the same guy that produced Pink Floyd's The Wall. And the thing, this guy Bob Ezrin is he's a musician as well as a producer. He helps co-write a lot of his songs on here. If you listen to this album or even The Wall by Pink Floyd, or if you listen to Detroit Rock City by Kiss, he's involved in all these little sound effects that are on these albums, and it's kind of interesting. But I'll give you a little bit of trivia here. I'm sure you've heard the song "Hello Hooray." Now, now that's one of my favorite Alice songs. But I'll tell you this interesting thing, the trivia I learned about this song. This is known as an Alice Cooper song, but it's not really an Alice original. I guess it was originally, I forget who wrote it, but it was originally performed by Judy Collins, which is nothing like an Alice Cooper performer. just kind of an interesting bit of information there. I also I like Elected, Generation Landslide. That's a pretty cool
I
song.
wanna be elected.
Yeah. So and it's interesting, because this was like the final album before the original band broke up, and then I think next came Welcome to My Nightmare, which is kind of it's something all onto its own. It's more of a concept thing, but this has a lot of the hits. Even we'll just end it on this. No More Mr. Nice. That's you can never go wrong with that song.
Yes. I just remember hearing it on the radio as a kid, and just being, his songs were stories.
Yeah, exactly. And
they always had that kind of element to the song, and I think that had a lot to do with his success. More to do with his success than the theatrics. Not talking down about the theatrics, but it was that ability to craft beautiful storytelling songs.
One thing I will say with the theatrics, one thing I will say with the theatrics, especially if you go see him live, it is like the ultimate rock show, like nothing you've ever seen. But interesting thing about his stage show, he, like you said, these songs are great. It's great storytelling, and he based like each song is kind of telling a story, especially when he's up there doing it live, and he kind of creates the atmosphere of the storytelling. It comes to life on stage. It just, if you've never seen Alice live, you got to see it. While he's still out there doing it. But Alice is one of my all-time greatest performers. But I'll let you go now, Gar. But thanks for doing this, and I'll let you know the interview will probably be up in about a week or so. And then tell all your friends, and if you like, post on any of your sites, and we'll do this again down the line. But thanks for taking time to talk to me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Jason, for inviting me. It's been nothing but a pleasure.
Yeah, I was catching up with you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, bye-bye, my friend. Take care.
Okay, take care.